And judges, please introduce yourselves.
Well, good afternoon, Illinois. My name is Ed Philpott. I am a trial attorney. My office is in central New Hampshire. And this is my third time judging the National We the People Finals.
Hi, I'm Molly Russell. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid of West Virginia, and I specialize in domestic violence law. And this is my first time judging the national competition. And I have a question for you to answer when you introduce yourself. What does it mean that you're a burger class? Okay. And then Michael?
Hello, my name's Michael Anderson, Dr. Michael Anderson. I'm a retired professor, retired college administrator. I live in northern Minnesota, and I work with Native American students from the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe here in the local schools. This is my 16th national contest.
Okay, and if you'd introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Gabriela Espinoza, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure why we're called the Burger Court.
Hi, my name is Amanda Moraz. I will be substituting for my colleague who unfortunately couldn't be here today. And I believe that to be in the burger class, it's the division that the state of Illinois is representing.
First and foremost, thank you for being here today. My name is Samantha Silva. We are at Chicago Hope Academy, and we are coached by our teacher, Mr. Zach Maslenka. And as my colleague said, I'm not quite sure what a burger class is either, but I'm glad to be here.
Maybe your teacher knows. And by the way, the first two young people who spoke, please just turn your mics up slightly. Can hear you a little better. Does your teacher know? You know what the burger part is?
You know what the reason is, Zach?
Yeah, I know this is my first year coaching the We the People competition. I know that we have the amazing opportunity of hailing the name of Warren Berger, but in terms of the scholarship, we actually were able to win this from our previous year just due to the COVID-19. Our previous teacher was able to apply.
So you're as part of that Warren Berger Constitution program?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. And I would point out, Zach, while we still have you, that Michael is from Minnesota, and I happen to be a lifelong Vikings fan. So
I'll go ahead and turn my screen off now then.
Okay. Unit 4. How have the values and principles embodied in the Constitution shaped American institution and practices? Question 2. Members of Congress are not only legislators, but they, quote, are also inquisitorial and should meet frequently to inspect the conduct of the public officers, close quote. How effectively do you believe Congress has used its investigatory power? Explain the differences, if any, between Congress's power to investigate and the power of oversight. Which power, in your opinion, is more significant? How effectively do you believe Congress has used its oversight powers? And we'll take your answer now.
Congress has effectively used its constitutionally implied investigatory power. James Madison anticipated the significance of congressional inquiry in Federalist 51 when he urged, in framing the government which is to be administered by men over men, you must first enable the government to control the governed and in the next place obligated to control itself. Historically, Senate investigations have uncovered wrongdoings, punished transgressors, and produced legislation aimed at prohibiting similar abuse in the future. The Constitution gives Congress the authority to impeach and remove the president, vice president, and other federal civil officers after determining that the officers have engaged in treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors. Although Congress has effectively used its investigatory powers, no provision of the Constitution expressly authorizes either House of Congress to make investigations and exact testimony to the day that it may exercise its legislative functions effectively and advisedly. The power to investigate checks and balances our government in examples such as reviewing, monitoring, and supervising federal agencies.
The congressional powers of oversight and investigation are not specifically mentioned in the Constitution, but rather implied. We believe that Congress's power to investigate is most significant. In Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, Congress has the authority to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by the Constitution in the government of the United States, or in any department or officer thereof. Congressional oversight refers to the power of Congress to monitor and, if necessary, change the actions of the executive branch, which includes many federal agencies. The purpose of this power is to prevent fraud and abuse in order to protect civil liberties and individual rights. It is key to the principle of checks and balances. Congressional investigations are conducted to gather information on the needs for future legislation, to test the effectiveness of the laws already passed, and to inquire into the qualification and performance of members and officials of the other branches. We can see this in Federalist 51, where James Madison expresses his concern for the government governing itself. While we believe that both of these powers are necessary to sustain a society and honest government, Congress's investigatory power is more significant because it not only helps our legislators make better decisions, but it also plays a fundamental role in the system of checks and balances.
We believe that Congress has used its oversight powers effectively through impeachment trials, assisting in policy change and providing statutory controls over the executive branch. Oversight powers in impeachment have been acted upon effectively through the monitoring of evidence used in impeachment trials. By checking the executive branch and monitoring their organizations and policies, congressional oversight powers have attained evidence in order to impeach different presidents. Oversight powers have helped Congress remove officials out of office, which is implied in the necessary and proper clause located in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Oversight powers have revealed corruption among high officials in different organizations and administrations, which have resulted in the recognition of agencies and commissions. In the court case Nixon versus United States, the Watergate scandal presented oversight powers by exposing White House officials of their illegal use of positions for political advantage, leading to evidence in impeachment proceedings. Oversight powers have been used effectively by the essential check in monitoring the presidency and controlling public policy. Congress oversight power over the president is based on the premise of creating a check and balance towards the authority of the president in making sure that decisions are made for the well-being of the country. Thank you, and we are now ready for your questions.
To what extent does partisanship influence the effectiveness of congressional oversight or investigation?
Do you mind elaborating more on what you mean by partisan?
Sure. The influence of political party loyalty. How does it impact Congress's impact or influences congressional investigations or oversight? I'm sorry, Gabriella, but you're muted.
Oh, sorry, I'm just thinking.
Okay.
So you're talking.
Oh, go ahead, Gabriella.
I was just gonna ask that you're talking about like a form of like bias in some way, or
So what does the bias do when a congressperson or a senator has a particular point of view that you see as bias? How does that impact oversight?
And if I can, I'll give an example. So when they were doing the investigation of Donald Trump and the Ukrainian phone call, some people said, his supporters, Republican supporters, said, I don't care what the outcome is. I'm going to support him either way. So how does acting like that impact investigations?
I feel like it impacts it in a really negative way because the biasness of that really does have a large influence in making a decision that's not just or right and can negatively affect the nation.
I feel like there'd be different types of consequences For the president, like in the example of Trump and the phone call with Ukraine, I feel like if someone else on a different political party was a judge or had a viewpoint, I think his consequences would be a little different.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good. You brought up Madison's Federalist 51st. It's an excellent choice for this particular project. But you also said, rightly so, that Congress is told essentially in that document that they regulate others, but they should also regulate themselves. What do you suppose that means? That Madison's saying Congress should regulate itself? Have you ever seen Congress do anything that made you uncomfortable or you thought should go another direction?
I believe that that's where checks and balances comes into play, where Congress should not only be able to create legislative acts, but they should also be able to hold accountability for themselves and both the House and the Senate.
Okay.
So can you give an example of where that oversight process has worked well? Or even an investigation that came out well? Had a positive result?
So,
Well,
go ahead, Amanda.
oversight powers, like they improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the economy of government operations. They also evaluate program like performances and like in like any agency. So they do have like an important role in our government. And I believe that through that, like they can hold their own like accountability as well as for like the executive branch.
Okay.
I think that maybe a like current event example would be maybe Congress investigating. I believe they're investigating the police departments at the current moment.
Mhm.
I think that's a big one in the society today.
Yeah, and I live in the state of Minnesota where many of the police actions have taken place lately that have led to very troubling outcomes for African American citizens and others, and they are definitely doing that. I think maybe now it's moved over from Congress to the Department of Justice. So can you think of other examples about civil liberties, for example, what we're talking about with respect to George Floyd and others who is their civil rights violation, not to mention the fact that they've been shot, which is also horrible. But can you think of other examples when those kinds of rights were protected through investigations by Congress?
So sometimes Congress will investigate a societal situation
Like
that comes to their attention.
like maybe the George Floyd situation. They further investigated that case in order
Certainly.
to get justice for all parties.
Yeah. So and other things like, for example, there are some states that are trying to change the way in which people can be registered or eligible to vote. And would that be a good role for Congress, in your opinion, to have an investigation of the new laws coming out of Georgia and Arizona and places like that? Was that an appropriate use?
I believe, yes, it is an appropriate use because they are, we saw like in our recent election, presidential election, there were a couple issues, especially, well, one being COVID. But with the polls, I believe that there should be further investigation because no individual should be, their right to vote shouldn't be taken away unless, of course, they are in prison. But even then, there's still exceptions.
So then if that investigation by Congress were to result in some national legislation that said you have to make voting more accessible in federal elections, that would be a positive outcome then, right?
Yes, it would definitely be a positive outcome because then the people are being represented more in the legislation that is passed and whatever the outcomes are of voting, the voices of Americans would be 100% heard.
Oh, there you go. Right on time.
Sorry.
Michael, would you like to start?
Sure, I'll be glad to. Now, for those of you who've forgotten, it's Sunday afternoon and you're doing schoolwork. So, and this is not exactly exciting material. It's hard to charge into a Sunday afternoon project on Congress's investigating power and oversight. So we're trying to not make this too hard on you, but I think you did a good job answering the voting rights idea there. It is sometimes really hard to think of those examples, but I'm concerned about what's happening in Georgia, where they're trying to take away voting rights. And I'm hoping that one of the things that comes out of it is a legislative investigation that could lead to oversight of the federal election systems. So that was where we were going with that. And you talked about Madison's Federalist 51. You couldn't have picked a better reading for that. So an excellent job doing that. And by the way, did I hear from the start that one of the three of you is an actual substitute? Is that true?
Yes.
So,
Yes, that's
well,
me.
whomever that is, way to go stepping in and helping out. That's kind of a tough challenge right there. So we're glad you're interested in civic education, and we're glad you're interested in participating and learning more. Molly, I'll pass the hat to you.
Sorry, that was lame. I apologize. Okay, so I agree. Federalist 51, right on point. I would like to see you all, if you advance, have some examples. And I think that, if you think of an example of a good investigation, example of a bad investigation, an example of good oversight, example of a bad oversight, that way you just kind of have it in your back pocket. So when we ask you, you can at least refer to something, you have something so you don't feel like you're a deer caught in the headlights. I know this can be overwhelming. And to echo Dr. Anderson's point, it's a Sunday afternoon. I thought that you all did a good job of talking about how the issues affect the people, the civic part. It wasn't just focusing on what Congress was doing, it was how it trickled down to actually impact the people. So I thought your focus there was good. Overall, good job. Ed?
Thank you very much for a great job on a tough afternoon with some tough questions aimed at you. The advantage and disadvantage of being the last person to give feedback is that all the good stuff's already taken. They've already talked about all the good stuff. I did again, I have to say, Federalist 51 is key in this question. I liked your reference to Nixon versus the U.S. in terms of the authority of Congress around the investigation of the executive. And all in all, I want to thank you for a great job. And Amanda, nice job stepping in at the last minute. Thank you very much, and have a good afternoon.
All right, let's congratulate the students for their effort and participation this afternoon. I will end the recording.